Welcome to History 480, U.S. History in the 20th Century, 1900 and 1945. I'm Professor Philip W. Travis, and I'll be your teacher in this course. This class should prove to be a very fascinating course. The first half of the 20th century is really a transformative time for the United States. The United States emerges as an industrial powerhouse, a global economic power. It also begins to emerge as a global military power, particularly at the end of the Second World War. The United States truly becomes a world power. Its population begins to expand. Prosperity is expanded for many. But of course, issues of inequality, particularly along lines of race, gender, and ethnicity, continue to persist and to challenge fundamental ideas of this country and the American dream. So it's a fundamental time in American history. It's a period in history in which we see the birth of American consumerism. We see the birth of modern professional spectator sport. We see the birth of the first superstar athletes. Babe Ruth, for example, Jim Thorpe. You see a time in which American culture is challenged fundamentally on a number of different levels. The challenges posed by imperialism, causing disruptions in terms of American society as America has debated the issue of whether or not the United States taking territories like the Philippines challenged American ideals. Challenges to civil liberties during things like the First World War, in which the United States government began to restrict American civil liberties when those opposed war, or of course the Japanese internment camps during the Second World War, and of course many other examples. It's a time period of great racism and segregation, not only in the South, but throughout the United States. It's a time period of gender inequality. It's a time period in which Americans really struggled to define citizenship and create the American dream for themselves. So it is a really fundamental and transformative time in American history. It's also a period of time where the United States government really established itself as a vehicle for progressive reform in American history. This is the era of the progressive era, the trust busting of Theodore Roosevelt. It's the era in which more national park land was set aside than at any other time. It's the era that preserved the Grand Canyon, among other natural wonders for the American people today. It's a time period in which the United States enacted fundamental reforms that remain in place. Reforms to, for example, the stock market with the Securities and Exchange Commission, the oversight body that oversees stock market activity. Reforms to the banking systems occurred during this time period. The creation of Social Security occurred during this time period, and a number of other very, very significant reforms that really chart the path of the United States well into the 21st century, and some of those core ideas that Americans engage even today in political conversation when it comes to justice, when it comes to civil liberties, when it comes to economic prosperity, taxation, extent of regulation, environmental protection, and so forth. So this is a really important time in American history, and I think this will be an incredibly fun and interesting class for us. It's great to see some familiar faces in the class. It's good to see some new faces in the class too. For some of you that have taken classes from me before, there's a couple little changes in this class. I have us, rather than writing the paper proposal and the one big paper, instead what I have us doing, I'm going to have us do 2 book reviews, and I'm going to have us write a shorter research paper, and rather than do the big paper proposal, I will have us do a paper topic selection and a thesis statement. I want to at least be able to see the thesis statement to make sure everybody's on track. And all this stuff I will explain, further in subsequent announcements. Every week I make an opening video announcement like this, and you should watch these video announcements, particularly because as we move forward in the class, I offer extra credit for watching these video announcements. And next week, when we have our second video announcement, you'll you'll understand what that extra credit is. It's described in the syllabus as well, but as we move forward, you'll see what the video announcement factoids, the extra credit activity entails. And it is a really easy way to gain some extra points on a test score, to jump your grade by 2.5 to 3 points at the end of the term. And it's very simple. You just watch these video announcements. I will state a factoid, and you email it to me no later than Wednesday by midnight. You get a bonus point. The details are in the syllabus. I will also discuss it more next week when we formally start this activity. We'll start the activity in week 2. And that's often, people love that activity, I think. It's a fun sort of way to get extra credit. It's also a fun way to sort of be exposed to some interesting historical facts that are maybe less common and maybe not always emphasized in the text for the week. So we'll have 2 short book reviews. I have a description of that at the end of the syllabus, and there will be more information on that forthcoming. Those book reviews are due. One is due week 3, the other is due the middle of week 9. The research paper is a little bit shorter because I'm having you do those book reviews, and the description for the research paper is also at the end of the syllabus. And of course, I will have more information on this forthcoming as we move forward in the term. The books for the class. So your main textbook is called A Time of Paradox by Glenn Jeanson, or Jeanson. That's the main text for the class. And you'll look at it and you'll notice that the text runs the entirety of the 20th century up to present. We're doing the first half. And when I teach History 481, I think I might be teaching it next year. When I teach the second half, I assign that book again, and then you read the second half for that. So don't worry about the fact that it doesn't end in 1945. We're reading up through 1945. And then in the second half of the class, 481, when I teach that, I assign the other half of the book. I don't know if you can hear that there's airplanes flying above right now, but I'm going to just hang on a second here. Okay, hopefully that is not super loud in the recording. The other book, the first reader we're going to be reading is Benevolent Assimilation. And this will be the first book that you review. This is on the American conquest of the Philippines. It's written by Stuart Crichton Miller. And it's an older book, but it is, I think, a really important contribution to history when it comes to understanding American foreign policy and the emergence of the United States as an American imperial power at this time. That'll be your first book review. That'll be due week 3. We'll be discussing that in the discussion forum as well. The book reviews are 600 words, and I'm going to kind of enforce that strictly. And I'll explain why in subsequent announcements, why we do book reviews. But just right now, just to introduce you to it. And I think most Americans know very little about the war in the Philippines. And it was a highly destructive war. And so I think it's important for us to understand this sort of oftentimes forgotten conflict in American history, the emergence of the United States as a global power. It was a critical event in that development, the first really colony that the United States had seized overseas in the Pacific. The other book, which will be, the book review will be due week 9, is War Without Mercy by John Dower. That book provides a really provocative look into the Pacific theater, analyzing the U.S. war in the Pacific primarily through the lens of race, as the United States fought the Japanese in an incredibly brutal war during the Second World War in the Pacific. That'll be your second book review. It'll be due the middle of week 9. And the reason I'm making it due the middle of week 9 is because at the end of the term, we have a number of other assignments that are coming due. Your final exam, which is not cumulative, but you'll have your final exam. You'll also have your paper due. So I wanted to get the book review in a little earlier so you're not, experiencing a bunch of exams all together. So that's due the middle of week, I believe it's actually the middle of week 10. So just before the exam week. In this class, make sure you go through the syllabus. You need to kind of look at what's in the Getting Started modules, refresh or inform yourself with what's in there. There's a little verification quiz I have everybody do. so that I know that everybody's kind of looked at the material. Remember to watch these video announcements every week. At the beginning of the week, watch them before Wednesday. I'll touch base with you. I'm giving you some good extra credit coming up on the basis of these as well. So make sure you're watching those. I also provide recorded lectures every week, and the recorded lectures are meant to provide you with a a lecture from me on the subject that we're dealing with right now. So that during that week, so make sure you take a look at those recorded lectures. They'll really help you to understand the material we're reading and the overall topics that we're discussing each week. And in that sense, they'll really help you when it comes to being prepared for the test. We have a midterm and a final in this class. We also have a series of quizzes, the weekly discussion forum, of course, which is each week you have a discussion forum. That's a total of 10% of your grade. I want students in the discussion forum. I want you to be involved 2 separate days during the week. So I want to see you make a first post or reply no later than Thursday, and then I want to see you active on another day. And of course, these details are described in the syllabus. The final exam is not cumulative, it's just another test. And exams are based on our readings, the topics of our discussion forums, and also our recorded lectures that I provide. You have your syllabus that you need to follow and look at, but important thing to remember is that everything you need to know in this class occurs in modules. And the class's modules are open week by week. So you'll start out this week, you'll do getting started, then it'll open up week 1 and you'll see week 1. Then Sunday of next week, I'll open week 2 and subsequently. So we go week by week, and you should expect the modules to always be opened on Sunday before the week assigned. So should be pretty straightforward. I made this kind of opening announcement a little long. I got a little carried away. Hopefully everything is clear here. Hopefully the airplanes flying above are not too loud. And let's have a great week. Let's have a great term. I think you'll find this to be a fascinating subject. Please email me if you have any questions or concerns, and I will respond promptly. Let's have a great week, everyone.